Hey there, my name's Gary Sims and this is Gary Explains. Now, if I've got one pet peeve, one thing that really annoys me, it's listening to squeaky, tinny music coming out of an overdriven speaker. Doesn't matter whether that's a radio or it's a Bluetooth speaker or whether it's your smartphone, when they're driven just too hard and there's no substance to it, it's just like someone scratching your brain. It really annoys me. Now, here's the question for you. How much audio do you actually listen to, all kinds of audio, through your smartphone speaker? And what are the factors that make that smartphone speaker better or worse? Well, if you want to find out, please, let me explain. So before we get cracking, I want to thank Cirrus Logic for sponsoring this video. Now, how much audio do you actually listen to through your smartphone speaker? Of course, you've probably got headphones. They might be with an actual headphone jack. There might be Bluetooth, there might be noise cancelling. You might have earbuds, whatever. Those, of course, are a solution that we all use for those moments when we want to just kind of block out the outside world and listen to something. But that doesn't mean we never use the speaker built into our smartphone. In fact, we do. If you think about it, probably when someone calls you, it's actually the ringtone, whatever you set it to be, is coming through the speaker. Now, if it was just that, then maybe there wouldn't be much more to say. But actually, if you think about it, you probably use that speaker more than you realise. For example, if you're doing turn-by-turn navigation in a car, do you do that with headphones or do you do that with the speaker? When I do it, I use the speaker that's built into the smartphone. What about, for example, if you're listening to a podcast? Some people listen to that with their headphones, some people listen to it with the built-in speaker. What about a video call? Over the holiday period, I made several video calls and I didn't use headphones, I just relied on the audio that comes through the speaker. Music, do you listen to any music just through the speaker? What about watching a YouTube video? I'm sure we've all seen a video that we like and then we share it with somebody else, say, hey, watch this video. And of course, then we're relying on the speaker that's built into the smartphone. So when we're talking about speakers, what are some of the things we're thinking about? Well, distortion is the thing that really gets on my nerves, as I mentioned earlier on. Just the disruption of that sound is being driven too hard, the speaker can't cope with it, and you just lose everything that the original artist or the original content producer wanted. But beyond, of course, distortion, we're also looking for loudness. We want good peak loudness without the distortion. And of course, we want a good dynamic range. So some of the things I mentioned, of course, video calls, and of course we're using audio, vocals, so we want to be able to hear people speaking. But then of course, if you're listening to music, you're going to want that wide dynamic range for the basses and also higher up for the other sounds, and you don't want it to be anything clipped or to be reduced. So producing high fidelity audio, of course, through a smartphone is actually quite a challenge, and there are different things that impact that audio quality. The first, of course, is the speakers themselves. Do you have one speaker? Is it a mono system? Do you have stereo speakers? Are they forward facing or are they kind of buried in the grill and going out backwards? There've been lots of different attempts over the years to kind of incorporate speakers into smartphones. Mono, as I said, stereo, forward facing, the size of them. All these things are important. And of course, the less money you pay, at the lower end, you're probably just looking at a tiny mono speaker buried into the grill next to the USB port, and that's basically your lot. But beyond the speaker, there are of course other things that impact the sound quality. You've probably heard of the DAC, the digital to audio converter, and some OEMs over time have tried to talk about the power of their DAC, how many bits it's got, how well it works, because that has an impact in converting the digital signal into an analog signal, which ultimately will drive the speaker. Beyond the DAC, we're also looking at the amplifier. Now, if you ask anybody interested in kind of home audio or hi-fi audio, then they're going to say, well, the speakers are important, the position of the speakers, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've got audiophile friends who tell you all about it. But of course, also the amplifier. What job the amplifier does, of course, is to power those speakers. So it doesn't matter how good your source is, doesn't matter how good the output is, in this case the speakers, if the part that's powering, driving them, is no good, then you're going to get bad quality of sound out through your speakers. Now we're going to do a very quick look at the different types of amplifier that exist. Now this is really like paragraph 1 of page 1 of any kind of discussion about amplifiers. There's loads more to cover, but this is really the basic stuff. So there are different types of amplifier circuits, different ways of building them, and you may have heard of some of the names, for example, Class A, Class AB, and Class A is the kind of thing that you'll find for kind of home audio and even up into professional stuff. Now, a Class A amplifier is basically always on, and what I mean by that is that even when there is no signal, so there's no music going into the amplifier, the circuit is still powered up. And the reason for that is, of course, is that it means there's no switching of on off. The components are warm, the components are ready, and I'm sure if you talk to an audiophile, they can tell you all the benefits of a Class A amplifier. The problem with Class A amplifiers and their friends is that they're very inefficient in terms of power, because when there's no signal going in, the circuitry is still running and it just produces heat. Now, of course, when you get to a mobile phone, we're talking about something that's powered by a battery, and we don't want heat and we don't want something to be switched on all the time. So here we have to switch to a different class of amplifier circuit. So for mobile devices, we tend to use what's called Class D, and Class D uses pulse width modulation. Now, pulse width modulation is used in all kinds of areas for different circuitries. It's not only in amplifiers, it's used all over the place. And in terms of an amplifier, you've basically got these pulses that are coming out. You're dividing up the signal into discrete little parts. Some of them are on and some of them are off. And so the amplifier circuit is therefore changed to be on or off. And the length of that pulse, the width of that pulse, actually determines how the audio is produced. And this is much more efficient in terms of battery life than out of, let's say, a Class A amplifier. Now, next to a Class D amplifier, you can have a Class G or a Class H way of boosting the output signal from the amplifier. So this is about the supply rails, the voltage that goes to the output side of the Class D. Now, to give that boost with a Class G, it can switch between different output levels. So it's a switched output level. And with Class H, what you actually get is a variable output level that really just kind of tracks the output level from the Class D, but then it just goes a little bit higher. We won't go too much into the detail. But in terms of sound quality and also efficiency, battery efficiency, as well as heat production, a Class DH amplifier is one of the better solutions. Now, inside a smartphone, of course, we often look at the big ticket items. What processor does it have? How much memory does it have? What's the internal storage? But on those circuit boards, and if you look at the kind of a tear down of these circuit boards, you will find an amplifier solution for powering the speakers. Now, Cirrus Logic actually do make audio solutions for speakers inside of smartphones, stereo setups, mono setups, all kinds of different things. And the one that I've been looking at recently is this D plus H setup, and they have a whole bunch of products in that range. In fact, you can find Cirrus Logic amplifiers in devices like the Xiaomi Mi 10 Pro. In fact, that particular device has won awards for its audio quality from organizations like DxOMark. In fact, the solutions from Cirrus Logic are more than just a Class D and Class H amplifier. You've also got a DSP in there, and on top of that, some extra battery management. So as a whole package, you get everything that you need to produce that high fidelity sound inside of your smartphone. So what does all this mean for people like me and for people like you? Well, two things. First of all, check yourself to see how much you actually use the built-in speaker. If you'd asked me initially, I'd say, oh, I don't use it very much. I use my headphones. I've got noise cancelling headphones. They're very nice. But actually, when I started to think about video calls and navigation, turn-by-turn navigation, and then showing other people YouTube videos, I actually realized that I rely quite a lot on the built-in speaker or on my smartphone. And I think you might find that you do too. And the other thing that means is that if we are relying on the speakers, then maybe we should pay more attention to the components that are driving that speaker. We've talked about the DAC before. People at OEMs have made a big issue about the DAC, but maybe we should also ask the question from time to time, well, what amplifier are you using? What quality of amplifier is that? And how is that going to make my audio experience better? Okay, that's it. My name is Gary Sims. This is Gary Explains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. We're all at the mercy of the YouTube recommendation algorithm, so the best thing you can do is to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification icon, and then you'll know every time I drop a new video. Okay, that's it. I'll see you in the next one.